Hi, I'm Linda, and this is No Frills ASMR. So, a few weeks ago, we started reading this, The Adventures of Ulysses, and I ripped the cover by accident. Oops. So, if you haven't already, go back and watch parts 1 and 2, where we read the first. We read 2 or 3 chapters. Wow, I don't remember reading that much, but okay, I guess we did. So we are on Keeper of the Wind. Let's put this where you can look at it while I read. Okay. Now the black ships beat their way northward from the land of the Cyclops, and Ulysses, ignorant of the mighty curse that the blind giant had fastened upon him, that was the Cyclops, was beginning to hope that they might have fair sailing the rest of the way home. So impatient was he that he took to the helm himself, and kept it night and day, although his sailors pleaded with him to take some rest. But he was wild with eagerness to get home to his wife Penelope, to his young son Telemachus, and to the dear land of Ithaca, where he had not seen for more than 10 years now. At the end of the third night, just as the first light was staining the sky, he saw something very strange. A wall of bronze, tall and wide, floating on the sea and blocking their way. At first he thought it was a trick of the light, and he rubbed his eyes and he looked again, but there it was, a towering bright wall of beaten bronze. Well, he thought to himself, it cannot stretch across the sea. There must be a way to get around it. He began to sail along the wall as though it were the shore of an island, trying to find his way around. Finally, he came to a huge gate, and even as he gazed upon it in amazement, the gate swung open and the wind changed abruptly. The shrouds snapped, the sails bulged, the masts groaned, and all 3 ships of the fleet were blown through the gate, which immediately clanged shut behind them. Once within the wall, the wind fell off, and Ulysses found his ship drifting toward a beautiful, hilly island. Suddenly there was a great howling of wind. The sun was blown out like a candle. Darkness fell upon the waters. Ulysses felt the deck leap beneath him as the ship was lifted halfway out of the water by the ferocious gust and hurled through the blackness. He tried to shout, but the breath was torn from his mouth, and he lost consciousness. Ulysses had no way of knowing this, but the mischievous Poseidon had guided his ship to the island fortress of Alos. I think that's how you say that. Keeper of the Winds. Ages before, when the world was very new, the gods had become fearful of the terrible strength of the winds and had decided to tame them. So Zeus and Poseidon, working together, had floated an island upon the sea and girdled it about with a mighty bronze wall. Then they set a mountain upon the island and hollowed out the mountain until it was a huge stone dungeon. Into this hollow mountain they stuffed the struggling winds and appointed Aeolus as the jailer, and there the winds were held captive. Whenever the gods wanted to stir up a storm and needed a particular wind, they sent a message to Aeolus, who would draw his sword and stab the side of the mountain, making a hole big enough for the wind to fly through. If the north wind were wanted, he stabbed the north side of the mountain. Its east slope for the east wind, and so on. When the storm was done, he would whistle the wind home, and the huge, brawling gale, broken by its imprisonment, would crawl back, whimpering, to its hole. Aelus was an enormously fat demigod with a long, wind-tangled beard and a red, wind-beaten face. He loved to eat and drink and fight, play games and hear stories. 12 children he had, 6 boys and 6 girls. He sent them out one by one, riding the back of the wind around the world, managing the weather for each month. 12 children, and they managed the weather for each month. Okay. And it was the great castle of Aelius. I'm showing you that word because I think I keep saying it wrong. Aelus. That Ulysses and his men found themselves when they awoke from their enchanted sleep. Invisible hands held torches for them, guided them to the baths, anointed them with oil, and gave them fresh clothing. Then the floating torches led them to the dining hall, where they were greeted by Aelus and his 12 handsome children. A mighty banquet was laid before them, and they ate like starved men. Then Aelus said, "Strangers, you are my guest, uninvited, but guests all the same. By the look of you, you have had adventures and should have fine stories to tell. Yes, I love a tale full of fighting and blood and tricks, and if you have such to tell, then I shall entertain you royally. But if you are such men as sit dumb, glowering, unwilling to please, using your mouths only to stuff food into, then you are apt to find things less pleasant. You, Captain," he roared, pointing at Ulysses. "You, sir, I take for the leader of this somewhat motley crew. Do you have a story to tell?" "For those who know how to listen, I have a tale to tell," said Ulysses. "Your name?" "Ulysses of Ithaca." Yes," said Aelus. "I seem to recognize that name. Believe I heard it on Olympus while my uncles and aunts up there were quarreling about some little skirmish they had interested themselves in. Near Troy, I think. Yes, were you there?" "I was there," said Ulysses. "I was there for 10 years, dear host, and indeed took part in some of that petty skirmishing that will be spoken of by my men who love courage when this skirmishing that will be spoken of by my men who love courage when this bronze wall and this island and you and yours have vanished under the sea and have been forgotten for 1,000 years. I am Ulysses. My companions before Troy were Achilles, Menelaus, Agamemnon, mighty heroes all, and, in modesty, I was the least among them." "Yes," said Aelus, "you are bold enough, too bold for your own good, perhaps. But you have caught my attention, Captain. I am listening. Tell on." Then Ulysses told of the Trojan War, of the abduction of Helen and the chase, and the great battles, the attacks, the retreats, the separate duels. He spoke of Achilles fighting Hector and killing him with a spear thrust, of Paris ambushing Achilles, and finally how he himself had made a great hollow wooden horse and had the Greek armies pretend to leave, only to sneak back and hide in the belly of the horse. He told how the Trojans had dragged the horse within their gates, and how the Greek warriors had crept out at night and taken the city and slaughtered their enemies. Aelus shouted with laughter. His face blazed and his belly shook. "Ah, that's a trick after my own heart," he cried. "You're a sharp one, you are. I knew you had a foxy look about you. Wooden horse, ho, ho. Tell more, tell more." Then Ulysses told of his wanderings after the fall of Troy, of his adventures in Lotus Land and what had happened in the Cyclops' cave. And when Aelus heard how he had outwitted Polyphemus and blinded his single eye, he struck the table with a mighty blow of his fist and shouted, "Marvelous, a master stroke! By the gods, you are the bravest, craftiest warrior that has ever drunk my wine." He was especially pleased because he had always hated Polyphemus. He had no way of knowing, of course, that the blinded Cyclops had prayed to his father and had laid a curse on Ulysses, and that he, Aelus, was being made the instrument of that curse. He did not know this, for the gods move in mysterious ways, and so he roared with laughter and shouted, "You have pleased me, Ulysses. You have told me a brave tale, a tale full of blood and tricks, and now I shall grant you any favor within my power. Speak out, Ulysses, ask what you will." "But one thing I seek, generous Aelus," said Ulysses, "your help. I need your help in getting home, for it has been a long, weary time since we saw our homes and our families. Our hearts thirst for the sight of Ithaca." "No one can help you better than I," said Aelus. "You sail on ships, and I am keeper of the winds. Come with me." He led Ulysses out into the night. A hot orange moon rode low in the sky, and they could see without torches. Aelus led him to the mountain, carrying his sword in one hand and a great leather bag in the other. He stabbed the side of the mountain. There was a rushing, sobbing sound. He clapped his leather bag over the hole, and Ulysses, amazed, saw the great bag flutter and fill. Aelus held its neck close, strode to the east face of the mountain, and stabbed again. As the east wind rushed out, he caught it in his sack. Then he stomped to the south slope and stabbed again, and caught the south wind in the sack. Now, very carefully, he wound a silver wire around the neck of the sack. It was full now, swollen, tugging at his arm like a huge leather balloon, trying to fly away. He said, "In this bag are the north wind, the south wind, and the east wind. You must keep them prisoner. But if you wish to change course, if a pirate should chase you, say, or a sea monster, or if an adventure beckons, then you open the bag very carefully, you and you alone, Captain, and whistle up the wind you wish. Let just a breath of it out. Close the bag quickly again and tie it tight, for winds grow swiftly. That is their secret, and so they must be carefully guarded." "I shall not change course," said Ulysses. "No matter what enemy threatens or what adventure beckons, I sail straight for Ithaca. I shall not open your bag of winds." "Good," said Aelus. "Then bind it to your mast and guard it yourself, sword in hand. Let none of your men approach, lest they open it unwittingly. In the meantime, I will send the gentle west wind to follow your ship and fill your sails and take you home." "Thank you, great Aelus. Thank you, kindly keeper of the winds. I know now that the gods have answered my prayers, and I shall be able to cease this weary, heartbreaking drifting over the face of the sea, having my men killed and eaten, my ships destroyed, and my hopes shattered. I will never cease thanking you, Aelus, till the day I die." Oh my. 2 pages. "May that sad occasion be far off," said Aelus politely. "Now, sir, much as I like your company, you had better gather your men and be off. I shall be uneasy now until my winds return to me and I can shut them in the mountain again." Ulysses returned to the castle and called together his men. Gladly they trooped down to the ships and went aboard. Ulysses bound the great leather sack to the mast and warned his crew that no man must touch it on pain of death. Then he himself stood with a naked sword under the mast, guarding the sack. "Up anchor," he cried. The west wind rolled off the mountain and filled their sails. The black ships slipped out of the harbor. Away from the island they sailed, away from the mountain and the castle, toward the wall of bronze. When they reached the wall, the great gates swung open, and they sailed westward over the water oily with moonlight. Westward they sailed for 9 days and 9 nights. In perfect weather they skimmed along, the west wind hovering behind them, keeping their sails full and pushing them steadily home. And for 9 nights and 9 days, Ulysses did not sleep. He did not close his eyes or sheath his sword. He kept his station under the mast. Food and drink were brought to him there, and never for an instant stopped guarding the sack. Then, finally, on the morning of the 9th day, he heard the lookout cry, "Land ho!" and strained his eyes to see. What he saw made his heart swell. Tears coursed down his face, and they were tears of joy. For he saw the dear, familiar hills of home. He saw the brown fields of Ithaca, the twisted olive trees, and as he watched, he saw them even more clearly, saw the white marble columns of his own castle on the cliff, and his men watching saw the smoke rising from their own chimneys. When Ulysses saw the white columns of the palace, he knew that unless the west wind failed, they would be home in an hour. But the friendly wind blew steadily as ever. Ulysses heaved a great sigh. The terrible tension that had kept him awake for 9 days and nights eased its grip. He raised his arm and yawned. Then he leaned against the mast and closed his eyes just for a minute. 2 of the men standing in the bow saw him slump at the foot of the mast, fast asleep. Their eyes traveled up the mast to the great leather bag, plump as a balloon, straining against its bonds as the impatient winds wrestled inside. Then Poseidon, swimming invisible alongside, clinked his golden armlets. The men heard the clinking and thought it came from the bag. One man said to the other, "Did you hear that? Those are coins, heavy golden coins, clinking against each other. There must be a fortune in that sack." The other man said, "Yes, a fortune. That should belong to all of us by rights. We shared the danger and should share the loot." "It is true," said the first, "that he has always been generous. He shared the spoils of Troy." "Yes, but that was then. Why does he not divide this great sack of treasure? Alias gave it to him, and we know how rich he is. Alias gave it to him as a guest gift, and he should share it with us." "He never will. Whatever is in that bag, he does not mean for us to see it. Did you not observe how he has been guarding it all these nights, all these days, standing there always, eating and drinking where he stands, never sheathing his sword?" "It is in its sheath now," said the second sailor, "and his eyes are closed. Look, he sleeps like a babe. I doubt that anything would wake him." "What are you doing? What are you going to do with that knife? Are you out of your mind?" "Yes, out of my mind with curiosity, out of my mind with gold fever, if you must know. Ulysses lies asleep, his sword sleeps in its sheath, and I mean to see what is in that bag. Wait, I'll help you, but you must give me half. Come then." Swiftly and silently the 2 barefooted sailors padded to the mast, slashed the rope that bound the bag to the spar, and bore it away. "Hurry, open it." "I can't. There's wire twisted in a strange knot, perhaps a magic knot. It won't come out." "Then we'll do it this way," cried the sailor with the knife, and struck at the leather bag, slashing it open. He was immediately lifted off his feet and blown like a leaf off the deck and into the sea, as the winds rushed howling out of the bag and began to chase each other around the ship. The winds screamed and jeered and laughed, growling, leaping, reveling in their freedom, roaring and squabbling, screeching around and around the ship. They fell on their gentle brother, the west wind, and cuffed him mercilessly until he fled. Then they chased each other around the ship again, spinning it like a cork in a whirlpool. Then, as they heard the far summoning whistle of the keeper of the winds, far, far to the west of the alien island, they snarled with rage and roared boisterously homeward, snatching the ship along with them, ripping their sails to shreds, snapping their masts like twigs, and hurling the splintered hulls westward over the boiling sea. Ulysses awoke from his sleep to find the blue sky black with clouds, and his home island dropping far astern out of sight. He saw his crew flung about the decks like dolls, and the tattered sails and the broken spars, and he did not know whether he was awake or asleep, whether this was some nightmare of loss, or whether he was awake now and had slept before, dreaming a fair dream of home. Whichever it was, he began to understand that he was being made the plaything of great powers. With the unleashed winds screaming behind him at gale force, the trip back to where they had started took them only 2 days. And once again, the black ships were hurled onto the island of the winds. Ulysses left his crew on the beach and went to the castle. He found Aeolus in his throne room and stood before him, bruised, bloody, clothes torn, eyes like ashes. "What happened?" cried Aeolus. "Why have you come back?" "I was betrayed," said Ulysses, "betrayed by sleep, the most cruel sleep of my life, and then by wicked, foolish, greedy crew who released the winds from the sack and let us be snatched back from happiness even as we saw the smoke rising from our own chimneys." "I warned you," said Aeolus. "I warned you not to let anyone touch the bag." "And you were right, 1,000 times right," cried Ulysses. "Be generous once again. You can heal my woes, you alone. Renew your gift. Lend me the west wind to bear me home again, and I swear to you that this time I shall do everything you bid." "I can't help you," said Aeolus. "No one can help he whom the gods detest. And they detest you, man. They hate you. What you call bad luck is their hatred, turning gifts into punishment, fair hopes into nightmares. And bad luck is very catching. So please go. Get on your ship and sail away from this island and never return." "Farewell," said Ulysses, and strode away. He gathered his weary men and made them board the ship again. The winds were pent in their mountain. The sea was sluggish. A heavy calm lay over the harbor. They had to row on their broken stumps of oars, crawling like beetles over the gray water. They rowed away from the island, through the bronze gate, and out upon the sullen sea. And Ulysses, heartbroken, almost dead of grief, tried to hide his feelings from the men. He stood on deck, barking orders, making the men sail, patch hull, rig new spars, and keep rowing. He took the helm himself and swung the tiller, pointing the bow westward toward home, which, once again, lay at the other end of the sea. Oh my goodness, look at the next chapter. Cannibal Beach. Oh goodness.